Hi, my name is Tami Dixon, and I am the creative principal and co-founder of Bricolage Production Company. And I am here today, isolated in my home. I'm sure many of you watching are also isolated in your spaces, and I pray that you are safe and that you are healthy and that you are well. I have been asked by my friend Clayton Southers to read one of his chronicles. I have been given the task of reading number 61, The Revolving Rooms. This is part 2 in a series of 9 Dark Chronicles. Here we go. The evil woman assembled all the husband and wife theater teams in the city. This was done under the guise of a massive collaboration grant. Everyone was to meet in a remote location. It was in the warehouse where I was being held hostage. When they arrived with my wife, I was hid in a small, crooked room and gagged. I distinctly remember my wife being totally against the idea of this traveling collaboration to the state of Indiana, saying that we have conflicting dates with our Fences production. As they walked her across the room, what seemed like to be somewhere with a dirt floor, they attempted to assure her that they would provide people to assist with the production, and they also offered to assist with childcare to free her up for the 6-week adventure. She adamantly declined and insisted on seeing me. I panicked, fearing for the worst and that they would take her hostage against her will. I knew that if I made any sound or movement whatsoever, that the man in the room next to me would cause me great pain by jerking back on the airline cables which ran through my wrists and ankles and held me firmly in place. I frantically searched the room with wide eyes. I saw no signs of hope, and just as I began to let defeat settle into my mind, I noticed something out of the corner of my right eye. It was just above the doorway, near where this evil man was sitting. It was what I had seen earlier, but now more distinct. It was a lever of some sort. I didn't know what it was for. However, it stood out in my mind as a strong possible source of escape. I could only see his shadow, which made minuscule movements. Then suddenly he was summoned, no doubt to assist in tying up my wife, I assumed. His shadow disappeared and my restraints loosened up greatly. I sat there momentarily and imagined just how many steps he would need to take to reach the evil woman that called him. Once I felt he was at a safe distance, I slowly let my body collapse to the floor, which brought me great pain. I winced and moaned, but my sounds were deafened by the layers of duct tape that had been wrapped around my head and mouth. I slowly inched my way to the door opening. The entire room was severely slanted, and this worked in my favor, and my body weight assisted in getting me there much faster. Once in the doorway, I had a much better view into the open area of the warehouse. I could see a small group of folks huddled up discussing their wicked plan with their leader, the evil woman. My wife was nowhere in sight. However, I imagined that she was close and being held against her will. The lever that I had seen was just out of reach. I studied and I tried to figure out just what its purpose was. I noticed that the room that it was in was some sort of command center. There were all sorts of dials and unlit lights, and from what I could see, the lever was key to the whole operation. I studied things once more, and then I inched closer until the lever was finally within my grasp. I attempted to pull it back, but the pain from my injuries proved to be too much to overcome. I tried again, but this time the pain made a painful moan escape me. The evil man looked back over his shoulder in my direction. I froze in the shadows and surveyed the room from afar. The evil woman motioned for him to check things out. He had a brief conversation with her, but but then turned and walked briskly towards me. Without hesitation, I lurched for the lever, grabbing it, and put my full weight behind it. It clicked downwards and a bit and then released and snapped back towards me. The entire room and what part of the warehouse I had seen started to rotate awkwardly. Everyone was propelled into some sort of rotating frenzy where everything was started spinning inside this big mobile contraption that they built for this theatrical experience. I saw my wife being quickly escorted out. The evil woman doctor and her sidekick's peculiar experiment had begun. The spinning grew faster and faster. I closed my eyes and counted myself repeatedly well into the hundreds. Visions of my family and things familiar danced inside my head. The only sound I could hear was the spinning of the room. It sounded much like large stone wheels on rolling concrete. The heavy granular spinning caused me to move towards an out-of-body experience. I can't quite recall just what was happening during this lucid time, but I do know I experienced no pain. Then suddenly the turning came to a grinding halt, much like a car needing its rotators replaced. I slowly opened my eyes. And I found myself in a hotel suite. The room was immaculate. It was decorated smartly in reds and blacks, and there was one individual there with me at all times. I realized that I was more in charge than they thought I could be. I was surprised that I was free, but I wondered where I was. The butler went to it. There was a knock at the door, and the butler went to it and opened it. I used to have all of this in my memory, but it now escapes me. I do remember that I had 4 separate visitors. It was as if they were auditioning for something. They each displayed for me their skills and exited. Each time one was finished, the room would rotate and the next would be let in by the butler. Finally, after everyone had left, the room began to spin once more, this time at a dizzying pace that left me weak. When it finally stopped, I found myself strapped to a chair in a smoke-filled room amongst criminals in suits. They milled about, muttering criminal-like things. They were mafia-like.